going on, guys? How you doing? Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. I don't know what time it is in your neck of the world. Here in Houston, it is morning, and it's beautiful and sunny outside. So we're going to talk about the weather today. Kidding. So my name is Alex with Mr. Deeds of BuysHouses.com. We buy houses throughout the country, mainly in Texas. This is where our hub spot is, and this is what we deal with over here. So we're going to talk today about, there's so many situational areas where people need to sell their house, good, bad, or ugly. They don't necessarily need to be motivated, they just want to sell a house. So it could be pretty, whatever the case is. But one of the situations that we have today is talking about tired landlords. So there's different types of landlords, and there's different types of situations that you have to deal with. So when you're selling with tenants in place, there's a couple of things. There's going to be some pros and cons we're going to talk about today, and so let's get started. Number one, we're going to talk about really one of the things that you have to look at is having selling a house and you have a tenant in place, and it's when you post it out there, and really the variable is retail versus investors like ourselves. As a landlord, they're typically investors, so they understand, but not a lot of them are comfortable buying with tenants already in place, because that could be a hornet's nest. And we're going to share with you some variables here, some pros and cons. So if you have not updated the house, then most other landlords don't want to sit there and buy it with the tenant in place, because they know they need to do all the work, they need to go check it out. Versus retail condition, you post it out there, whatever the case is, you might have that and it'll work for you. And that's typically somebody that's maybe getting conventional lending or something like that, and goes through that motion, but they want to see it, walk it. It's kind of like you're expecting it to be in perfect condition.
Closing flexibility. One of the main things that a lot of our landlords get from us is flexibility. And not just our landlords, our homeowners that work with Mr. Deeds Buys Houses. Usually because our purchases are cash, we're not waiting on appraisals, inspections. A lot of times we ourselves do the walkthroughs ourselves, so not to inconvenience any tenants. Versus when you're selling the tradition around with the real estate agent and you have a buyer that has a loan in place, it goes through a process where, with inspections, appraisals, and sometimes credit checks. So, and it's all dependent on the timeline of the bank. So if the bank says, okay, they only have 30 days or they can only close on this timeline, everybody's really moving on the bank's timeline, not on yours, not on your tenant's timeline. So one of the main things that I hear a lot of landlords tell me is that they weren't able to sell their home with the renters in place, because a lot of the times someone that's looking to buy and to live in it, they're not comfortable with a tenant in place. And a lot of times we run into challenges where the tenants would tell the homeowners that the tenants would be out of the home before they could move in, the new homeowners, but the homeowners were uncomfortable with not knowing what condition the house would be in after the tenants would move out. Because keep in mind, these loans, they come with inspections and appraisals. So there's always contingencies. Versus us, we're happy to buy your property. If you're a landlord, we're happy to buy it with your current tenants in place. Whether they're on time, whether they're not on time, regardless of the situation with your tenants, we will step in and make it a seamless and easy, smooth process for you guys. So we have no problem buying it with the tenants in place, or if you want to work something out with the tenants moving out, our closings are very flexible.
A lot of times when you have tenants, one of the issues is the tenant actually making the payment on the rent. Maybe they're not making the payment, maybe they're a difficult tenant, maybe the house is trashed out, whatever. So there becomes a variable when you as a landlord, and you got tired of handling this, and you're tired of dealing with the tenant and them not paying or whatever the case is, or being difficult, then what is it that you do? So we got plenty of experience to be able to step forward and help you to be able to extract the equity that you have and get this handled for you.
Right now what we're going to jump into is the key things that will help you sell your home with tenants in place.
About 5 items here that'll help you where you could just do this yourself. Things that you can do moving forward. There's additional information that you can look up and research to help you if your tenant's not paying, that you're gonna have to go through. However, here's just a couple of things just to be aware of when you're selling the property, but here's a variable in what we're looking at. So, number one of the things that you wanna do is you wanna make sure that you have all your deposits on file.
Number two is have receipts on the rents. You know, the biggest concern for any buyer, especially an investor who's going to buy your home with a tenant in place is the tenant on time, right? We don't want a hornet's nest, and we're okay with hornet's nest, but we just like to know ahead of time.
Number three, basically you want to make sure when you put the tenant in place in the beginning, it's kind of like a checklist. Hopefully you had a checklist, you started that process when you decided that you're going to rent out the house or whatever the case is, and you just didn't get somebody that came in and got the sign in the yard and got the phone number, called you and said, okay, here goes the deposit, and you allowed them to move in without doing a background check. You want to make sure you get copies of their IDs. Obviously, they fill out an application in order for you to do a background check. There's different services out there that you can do background checks. And if you already have this all on file, you just want to have this documentation ready so you can pass it over to the landlord, the next person. They're going to appreciate it, and it's going to make it a smoother closing for yourself.
Number four is provide the lease agreement. Have a copy of the lease agreement. Like Alex was saying, the more information a landlord is, anytime a landlord is buying a rental property, it's an investment for them. It was an investment for you eventually, right? So the more information you have about your investment, the buyer will feel more comfortable about giving you the highest and best offer. So that will definitely help you out. So have a copy of your lease agreement, even if it's on a month-to-month. Even if it's on a month-to-month, have a copy of that month-to-month agreement. Even if it just renews every 30 days, there's always needs to be something in writing that states who lives there, for how long, who gets to stay there. All that information is valuable. And number five is obviously have interior pics of the property, you know, preferably before the tenant moved in. That way you know what kind of condition it was. And preferably if you have, you know, you do monthly routine inspections on the home. Have any information that you have on the house systems. So if you got the roof repaired, you know, keep the information on the warranty. If you keep your AC serviced, keep the information on who services your AC, because it has, you know, warranty information and things like that. It tells us that the AC unit has been maintained routinely, and it's not going to be something that's going to, you know, end up breaking apart 6 months into the new ownership. As an investor, we always want to really pay attention to the big ticket items on a home. So roof, plumbing, electrical, AC, foundation, the water heater. So any of those items that you've replaced or you've maintenance, keep a copy of that, because that's valuable information from a home buyer that I hope you get the best offer as well. Okay?
Sounds good. So off to the next one. Now we're going to go over landlord fears and objections. These are just a couple of items that we get feedback from landlord sellers where they're afraid to move forward. They want to sell, but it's kind of like, I don't want you to go see the property, I don't want you to see the tenant, I want you to talk to the tenant, I want you to do this, that, and other, whatever. And these are kind of the things that we've uncovered, and we've still proceeded forward because we give them the comfort of what's going on and how we handle it being on this side of the table and our experience.
Yes, so going back to the number one, keep in mind, guys, if you guys are looking to sell a home to us, you are our priority. We want to provide a superior selling experience. So my purpose of going into a home is not to ask questions about the tenant, hey, how much do you pay in rent? That's not my purpose at all. My purpose is to do a professional walkthrough do a site inspection of the property and only the property. Any communications, obviously, about the property and the tenant will be handled directly from us to you, the homeowner, the landlord, not the tenant. Yes, and the reason some landlords, they're scared that the tenants are going to find out that they're selling is because they're scared that either the tenant's going to not make the next payment, so they can save that for the deposit, or basically move out, or move out before the lease expires. So one of the main things I always tell our homeowners, landlords, is, hey, educate your client. If you educate your tenant, if you have a lease agreement in place, even if it's on a month-to-month, all the lease agreements, they have a notice time frame. So have a conversation with your tenants. Like, I'm thinking about it, nothing's for sure, it's all preliminary, but we have an agreement in place, and if I sell the property, it's gonna transfer the agreement over. So that will definitely help you calm your tenant down. We protect you as much as possible to calm those fears with your tenant.
Number two, another concern is the COVID. They don't want to allow anybody to go out and see the property because of the COVID condition. So we actually have gloves. We carry gloves, mask, hand sanitizer and whatnot. So going out to go take a look at a property, we can go take a look at a property, not a big deal. You let the tenant know. We walk in, it's no more than 10, 15 minutes. We're doing a quick walkthrough, we're looking at the systems, and we're looking at the structure of the property, and then we're proceeding forward. And that's pretty much it. That will determine what we're gonna do, come through the agreement, go through the process, and we get it done, and then we just set up the time. And we could also conditionally help you relay the information to your tenant moving forward, because we might end up keeping them there. Not a big deal, they're good tenants. Although their alternative is to be able to do a walkthrough, a video walkthrough, so that way you can, because they know you should have access per your lease agreement anytime, because it is your property, to be able to walk through the property, so you can do a quick video and look at everything, and basically we can tell you and direct you as what we're needing for you to look at, what systems we're at, whatever the case is, and then that way we have a clear enough, justifiable idea of what needs to be done, any repairs, if anything, and if not, so be it, we're good, and we can proceed forward.
And number three, lastly, this is one of the things that I run into a lot with landlords. Once we're pretty much reaching the end, coordinate closing at the title so that they can get their funds for the sale of the home, is a lot of times they tell me, it's like, Israel, well, we need to close at the end of the month because, rent's due at the beginning. So one of the things I always tell our homeowners, our closing dates are very flexible, which we always close at a title company. All that simply the title company will do is they're gonna prorate the rent. So if the tenant pays $1,000 a month and we close in the middle of the month, well, guess what? You get to keep 500, and then 500 stays at the closing and it gets transferred over to us. It gets prorated. So you don't ever have to worry about bringing extra money to the table. It all gets taken out of the proceeds. So you don't have to worry about coordinating or telling the tenants not to pay or to wait. I always tell them, don't tell anybody not to pay. They just keep on paying like they typically pay. And then once we close, we coordinate with the homeowners. Usually we do a conference call so they hear it from you. Hey, Israel's now, or Mr. Dietz is now the new owner. You will now start making payments to them. And at that point, we'll go ahead and handhold the tenants and give them the new payment instructions. Deposits, guys. Don't forget deposits. When you sign an agreement with your tenant and they put a deposit for the house in case they do any damages, that deposit does not belong to you. It technically belongs to the tenant. So after they decide to move out, we will do a walkthrough, make sure that there's no repairs that needs to be done, and then that gets given to them minus any possible repairs that needed to be done, deductions. So remember, this deposit will also be transferred over at the title company. And again, you don't have to bring money to the table, it just comes out of the proceeds.
The tired landlord. The tired landlord might be somebody that owns a couple of houses and they've been owning, they might have family members living in the house and they're renting to them. And you know how family members are, they think, you're gonna do everything for free or whatever the case is. They want the Taj Mahal, but then, hey, I'm your brother, I'm your sister, I'm your nephew. Why do I need to pay the full amount of rent, right? So that's the tired landlord. Might be tired because the tenants aren't paying. So difficult tenants, whatever the case is.
The accidental landlord. So I'll give you an example of me. I had a home, ended up moving out, bought another property, and didn't know what to do with this one, so I just ended up renting it out. Didn't expect or plan to be a landlord. Googled something, printed out an agreement, a rental agreement, didn't know anything about how to evict somebody, just crossed my fingers and hoped everything well, put it on Craigslist, and that's how I actually found my renter.
Or worse, you go to what is that, Office Depot or something, and they have that little stand and you got all these little legal documents. You'll pull one out that says a tenancy lease or whatever the case is. You put one of those things, boy, you're not covered for anything. So that's something to be aware of.
Number three is from property managers. So if you're a landlord that has hired a property manager to go ahead and manage the daily tasks on your property, if you want to put us in contact with your property manager, that's perfectly fine. We'll coordinate with your property manager and look at the property and put together an offer.
There's some guys out there that obviously these guys are certified and licensed in the state of Texas, just like a realtor is. Now, if you're in Texas, you have to have a license to be able to do property management. So there are a lot of times there's these one-offs where you have a realtor that's sitting there to show the property for you, maybe because you're out of state, you inherited a property, then you ended up renting it out, and you got somebody local and you just hire a realtor, and you don't have a property manager, but they can sit there and still show that, or you have it listed. So it's not a big deal. All you gotta do is have them give us that phone number, let them know that we're gonna be calling them, setting up the appointments, that kind of thing, so we can go walk through the property.
And then number 5 is from your individual landlords. You know, they become accidental landlords. They wanted to buy an investment, and now they have 1, 2, maybe up to 20 properties, and they're managing it all themselves. We'll also work with you if you're that type of individual landlord.
Maybe you're looking to retire. Maybe you got a lot of stuff. Now you want to give a little bit more free time to your life, and you want to move on and go with your kids and go to Florida, go see your grandkids, that kind of thing. And you want to be able to sell your portfolio, and maybe let's say you got 20 properties, but you only want to sell maybe 5 of those. So then you can give us a call. We work with everything. We go through the whole process. It doesn't matter where it's located at, and we'll handle it. We'll go through that, and we can proceed to the closing table, get the agreements, get that money back in your pocket. So there you go, folks. Moving forward, basically.
Find us, like, follow, and share on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, TikTok. We are Mr. Deeds Buys Houses. There you go.
You can find us at MrDeedsBuysHouses.com. Go to the website, you've got the phone number, you can fill out the form. We'll call you back within 20 minutes. We'll set up the appointment. We'll do whatever it is, handle the questions that you have to give you a wonderful experience and expedite that cash in your pocket.